All right, everyone. We have quite a few people here already, so I'll get started. I'll try and do my best to also, if you see my eyes wandering, it's just 'cause I'm trying to admit some more people in from the waiting room. So my name is Byrne Smith. I am the Associate Director for Housing Operations here at Loyola University in the Office of Residential Life and Housing. I'm excited to talk a little bit more about the move-in process. So I'm going to go over kind of like a brief overview of some of this information. And some of this information your students also should have already received via email from us recently. And so hoping we can continue to get the messaging out there, knowing that you all will likely be very involved in our move-in day as well. And just make sure that I also leave some time at the end for questions that might be coming through. So move-in logistics, one of my favorite days of the year. I always love first year move-in excitiment's The excitement's always really great. And folks, both I think on the student side, obviously are excited to start their journey.
Annika, are you gonna open the door?
Um,
I would if I could, jackass.
yeah, so excited to kind of get excited to get their journey going, and we're excited to be welcoming folks to campus. So yeah, I'll get started with a few kind of things that we are thinking about as we head towards move-in. So just wanted to go over some important dates that are coming up. And that kind of already has started. So students have received their housing assignments. They should have just received an email late last week or early this week about scheduling their arrival times on RoomRes. And so they are able to select that time on August 29th, which is our move-in day, that they will be arriving. There are a group of students who won't necessarily do that time slot schedule, and those are our folks who are arriving for a pre-fall program. So if your student is participating in maybe something with outdoor adventures, or maybe part of ISP, the Ignatian Scholars Programs, some of those folks are moving in early. So most of our pre-fall programs are moving in Sunday, August 25th, but we do have a few other programs who are moving in on some alternate dates, but they should have received an email with that information and been in contact with their group's advisor about the date that they're moving in. Again, for all other students, all of our new students who are coming through, we will be welcoming them to campus on August 29th. We plan to do the move-in timeframe from about 9 a.m. To 2 p.m. And the reason we kind of have that cutoff in the early afternoon is to let folks get unpacked, unloaded before the kickoff of our Weeks of Welcome programming, which happened later in the afternoon on the 29th. Just some other things to be thinking about that your students will be engaging with pretty quickly once they get here is filling out their roommate agreement. And so that is something that we will be requiring all of our first year students to do, and that helps our students really have some conversations about their expectations for the room, and kind of like what they hope to, like how they hope to communicate with one another as roommates. And so those will be open for about a little over a week from the 9th to the 16th. And then hopefully, depending on, how far you are away or any of those kinds of things, we are welcoming families to campus for Family Weekend on September 27th through the 29th. All right. So as you think about, preparing for students' arrivals, there were some things that we have been asking students to do, and they probably might be a little bit sick of our emails already, but these are some important tasks that they are needing to do before they arrive to campus. And so failure to complete some of these items or any of these items on this list will prevent students from being able to move in when they arrive. So we will be able to have folks move in later that day once they complete these requirements, but these are just some of the like trainings that they have been asked to do, as well as their health profile. And so those are things that we will be working with other offices, and unfortunately, if students have not gotten those done before they get here, we will have them complete those before we're able to check them into housing. And then also, just happened recently, but fall tuition was due earlier this week, or late last week, I apologize. Don't even know what day of the week it is, apparently. So those are just some things that you probably are already aware of, but just connecting and checking in with your student to make sure that they have done particularly all of those kind of pre-requirements that they're going to be needing to do before they arrive. So what to expect at move-in? So kind of thinking of this in two slightly different processes. So there's the first part of the process where we do a centralized check-in at our fitness and aquatic center, what we lovingly refer to as the FAC. And so that is the time frame that you will arrive there is the time frame that your student has signed up for or will be signing up for on room res. Um, and so at the FAC, we will kind of have folks drive up. They will do the check-in process, which will be a little QR code on their portal. And then they will receive their key. We do have hard keys here at Loyola, and so they will physically be getting a key to their room. And then we will have folks line up by residence hall so that then we can transition folks over to do their unloading at the building. So just some things to think about as you're kind of doing some of that packing and some of those kinds of things. Packing light, as light as you can. Spaces aren't I've definitely seen some folks bring quite a few more things than I personally thought we were going to fit into the floor plan. But then also thinking about some of the things that you may have purchased, some of the new items that folks have been buying for the residence hall rooms, trying to unbox some of those things at home just to decrease the amount of trash and recycling that ends up in our dumpsters. They get very full very quickly with our over 1,000 first year students moving in. We ask that folks only bring one vehicle when they're doing their move-in and try to limit helpers to 2 people. And then I did want to mention that we can't accommodate moving trucks or storage pods. We just really don't have the space for that to do that unloading at the residence halls. And so kind of the second part, so once you have gotten checked in, once there is space to unload at the building, you will be directed to go to the unloading zones at the individual buildings. So on our east side of campus, we have Butler and Hammerman and then Thea Bowman. And then on the west side of campus, we have Campion Tower and then Hopkins Court. So those are kind of our 4 first year residential areas. So some things to think about as you arrive to, or as you're prepping for needing to unload is trying to label, especially all of the boxes that you have with your student's last name and like building and room number. That is just really helpful just in case as we're kind of like moving things in carts or something gets set down somewhere, we can make sure that no items get lost. There are stairs and elevators in all of the buildings. And so depending on what floor you're going to, some of our, we will have some helpers to help you unload your cars. Sometimes depending on items, folks may take the stairs, but we will also have moving carts available to take up in those elevators. So for most buildings, the unloading, you'll have about 30 minutes to unload. And again, there are student volunteers who will support that unloading process. However, Campion is a little bit different, and this is a change that we're making this year based on some feedback I received from both folks who work on campus here, but also just hearing from previous parents in previous years. The Campion can just be a really hard place to unload. There's a really small parking lot. And so what we're gonna hope to do is have kind of a drop and go unloading. And so we'll ask that the driver stay in the vehicle as we work with your student and any other support folks that you have, as well as our student volunteers, to unload the vehicle and then have that vehicle moved pretty immediately so that we can kind of keep the flow of traffic moving in there. Again, this is a little bit something we're trying new this year to hopefully help alleviate some of the bottleneck that we end up having at Campion. So we hope that will kind of navigate a smoother move-in process once we're at the building. So regardless of where you're moving in, though, after sort of your 30 minutes, or again, you've fully unloaded the car over at Campion, you will relocate your cars to the satellite lots that we have. You'll be given information on the day of exactly where those will go. And then if you're needing to return to the hall to connect with your student, help them unpack any of those kinds of things, a shuttle will be running between the satellite lots and the buildings throughout the day. As I've mentioned a few times, we have these green moving carts, or they look like large laundry bins. And then we will have some student volunteers, primarily our evergreens, who your students have met an evergreen during their orientation if they were here on campus. And they will assist in some of that unloading process, as well as we will have some residential life staff available at each community to help folks navigate the building, especially if they've never been in it before, and hoping to make that move-in process as smooth as we can, as we move in lots of students to every building each throughout the day. So just some things to consider, continue to think about as your student is preparing. I know folks got their roommate assignments not that long ago. So really reaching out and talking to their roommate, introducing themselves and kind of trying to get just a little baseline of who they're going to be living with for the upcoming year. Maybe they have some shared interests, some of those kinds of things, but also talking about any shared items they might be wanting to bring to the room. Most of our rooms probably can't fit 2 fridges, and so kind of navigating that if maybe someone's bringing a fridge, someone's bringing a microwave, any other things that they might want to share. And talking about how they want to approach that arrival day. It's also going to be helpful to know maybe who's coming at what time and what times you've signed up for. And then again, we talked about a little bit earlier, that roommate agreement is something that they should be thinking about, even maybe before they arrive. So what might their needs be in that room, and how can they kind of preemptively start some of that conversation before the official quote unquote roommate agreement kind of opens. And then just thinking about, I know move-in day can have a lot of emotions. I know students are excited but nervous, and I'm sure that you all might be feeling some of those feelings as well. So really thinking about how you're going to kind of navigate the goodbye of dropping your student off, but also knowing that there are going to be other people in the space. So depending on what building your student lives in, they have several roommates, so there might be some other families around, kind of also navigating some of those kind of send-off conversations as folks transition into the students transition into their afternoon of programming. So trying to give folks, the space they need to do it. Everybody kind of have the space that they need to do what they need to do in the room for unpacking, having some of those conversations. And it's okay if something gets forgotten. We have lots of different kind of ways that folks are able to obtain items. Of course, folks end up shipping things sometimes here. And so kind of navigating some of those things if things were forgotten. We definitely can help students refer students to places in the area too if they need to pick up any additional supplies. And then the first event starts at 4 p.m. So that's when students will really kind of kick off their weekend programming, and then weekend programming, which is hosted by our Office of Student Engagement, who also hosted orientation. They are the folks who are planning those individual events that are going to be happening for the students throughout the weekend. And that's kind of my general spiel about move-in day. So just wanted to make sure I was able to walk through some of those logistics, particularly sort of that 2-phase. You're going to head to the FAC and then you're going to go to the students building. But also just want to provide some time for questions if folks have them.
Hi.
Yeah,
Should I ask a question or should I type it
sure.
in? I didn't know what to do.
Oh yeah, either way is totally fine. I'm
Okay.
monitoring both.
Thank you. I'm Barb now. My daughter's moving in.
Okay.
I just had a question. She moves in on the 28th because she's part of the honors program.
Yep.
Does she still go to the FAC, and do we have any, like the cart or any of that
Yeah,
available to us that day? I just want to know what to plan for, please. Thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah, so anybody who's moving in early will get specific instructions about those days. I know for a fact that actually the 28th, we will be providing some carts over at Thea Bowman, which is where all the honor students live. And then anybody else with some of those early arrivals, they will get a specific date or a specific time range that we're going to be asking folks to move in, and the location that they need to go to. So I think someone else in the chat also asked about carts being available for students moving in on the 25th. Those folks will also have some carts available. And depending on which part of campus they're living on, they'll go to 2 sort of like smaller centralized locations. We don't necessarily need the FAC for any of those early move-in days, just based on the number of students we're moving in those days.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
When,
Somebody asked in the chat about list of items needed for the room. So we actually on our website have a items to bring list under the housing process. So I would suggest looking at that, and that has been linked into most of the emails I've been sending students, just to be able to help with some of that in terms of bedding, some other things that they might want to consider. Um, Somebody asked if it is mandatory that parents leave campus at 4. We don't have any programming necessarily for parents, and the students will be booked pretty much throughout the night. So it's not necessarily mandatory that folks leave, but at the same time, we don't necessarily host any specific parent programming throughout that weekend. And then I got a few other ones in here. So somebody asked, they missed one of the slides about key things to do before arrival. So paying the bill and then also doing any of the pre-requirements that should have been on the first year student checklist. So any of those trainings and their health forms with the health center. And how long do I suggest parents remain on campus to get their students settled? Ooh, I don't know that there's like a specific time frame. I think whatever is most comfortable for you and your student as you kind of are unpacking or any of those kinds of things. But also knowing that they will be pretty programmed throughout the weekend. And so I think navigating with your student, that could be a good conversation to have depending on what time you're arriving. But then campus does get very busy that day. So if you're moving in at 8 a.m., or not 8 a.m., sorry, we don't have 8 a.m. time slots. If you're moving in at maybe 10 o'clock in the morning, staying till 4, probably not going to be the most exciting day. Mostly it is kind of a very busy and a little bit hectic on our end day. And again, there's no programming until 4 o'clock, and that's just for the students. Somebody asked about so pre-assigned pre-falls, again, will not go to the fact check-in. They will get specific instructions of where to go. And then yes, the dorm rooms do have physical keys that get picked up at the FAC. We're getting some good questions in here. Are curtains allowed? Yes. If folks decide they want to utilize that as some decoration, you're more than welcome to. Just making sure anything you're going to use for decor, anything like that, I would just double check our community standards. There are some pieces in there of lots of voltage things and some other things in terms of decor that we don't allow. So just making sure any of those things are in compliance, but curtains are not something that are listed in there. The bookstore will be open on the 29th during move-in day. So you should be able to go pick some stuff up there if you'd like to check anything. So the next question in here was about students getting items delivered from, local Target or Walmart. Students are able to see their mailing address on room res, which is where they see a lot of their other housing information. And so they actually have like a specific way that they will address things to send to campus, and then they will pick that up at the campus mailroom. What is included? Next thing, what is included in the room besides the furniture? Do you have to bring supplies like toilet paper, hand soap, and things like that? So that really depends on what room type you're in or what building you're in. So in Hammerman, Butler, and Hopkins, the bathrooms are considered more community style, so they're external to the room. However, in Thea Bowman and Campion, those bathrooms are internal to the unit. And so it is expected that the students do provide their own items. I would suggest cleaning supplies for everybody's room, but that cleaning supplies might look different depending on the type of room setup you have. We would like to bring an office task chair to use instead of the wooden chair provided. Is bringing your own desk chair allowed? There's nothing, I don't believe, specifically prohibiting that. However, we won't necessarily remove the wooden desk chair. We just don't have enough space to store all of those items. And so that is something that the students would need to figure out how to be able to store the extra chair in the room. Carts will be available on the 25th for that early move-in. And then the next question was about, for Thea Bowman, what do the bathrooms look like? I don't know how to specifically describe them, but it is again, it's I think that's the one, if you have been on a tour, you have potentially seen that. And then it is, shower, stall, toilet, and sink, and 4 students will share that. If you look on the website, there are some digital renderings under Thea Bowman that might help you get a little bit better of a sense of what that looks like. How soon will this recording be posted? I'm going to work with our folks over in Office of Student Engagement to have this posted on the parent portal. Just we'll work with them hopefully within a week or so, if not sooner. Somebody mentioned that their student was not able to select a move-in time slot when he tried the other day, and heard many people have not been able to. I had not heard that specifically. I was out of the office for a couple days at a conference, and so there are, depending on when they're trying to select, if they weren't able to see any time slots, that might be an issue, and have them reach out to me directly. But there may be portions of time that no longer have time slots for their building. We limit the amount of time slots, like people who can sign up in each time window by building, so that we're able to help control that flow of traffic. Someone, okay, answered the office chair, so I'm glad 2 people, same question, love that. Is there programming for the students in the morning of the 30th if we want to grab a few things at nearby stores? There is programming throughout that weekend. I don't have the detailed schedule, but that should be posted on the orientation website, at least a general schedule that is happening. But through the 29th through the Sunday, there is programming throughout that day. So it would just be kind of looking at that schedule to see when there might be a good window to be able to do any of that last minute shopping. In Butler, is there a water bottle filling station? I actually don't know the answer to that, so I will try and make sure I can get the answer to that. And then our dining hall's open for lunch on the 29th. We will have dining halls functional that day. I would just note that it is a busy day on campus, so depending on how many people are trying to go in and out of there, lines might be a little bit long. And then someone asked if blinds are provided, just not curtains. Yes, blinds are provided in all the rooms, just not like more decorative type curtains. Oh, okay, so the bookstore will be open on the 28th, 9th. So any of the bookstore hours, they typically are operating any weekday. So I believe they would be open, but for specific time frames, I would check their website. Yeah, so students who are doing either Instacart deliveries, the question is if they are going to be going directly to the mailroom or to the building. So Instacart deliveries and something like an Uber Eats or something like that will go directly to the building. And so they would just need to make sure that they are explicit with the directions they are giving about where to do that drop off. A lot of our campus does have essentially the same address, so they just need to be careful about how they enter that address to make sure it gets where they need to go. But then of course they can talk with the driver once that happens. How do we find measurements for storage, for example, under bed clearance, cubby, and closet sizes? Most of that information in terms of furniture measurements is listed on the website. And so there's a page about like residence hall information, and that should have some measurements on there. If it doesn't have what you need and you're looking for something specific, you can reach out to our office. Last I looked, it did have quite a few measurements on there that I found very helpful as well. Can beds in Bowman be lifted to loft height? So most of our beds are adjustable, but we don't necessarily loft all of our beds. So if you're thinking about sort of almost like the one bed being like bunk bed height with stuff underneath, we don't necessarily do quite that high. But you can alter the height of the bed to give some additional storage underneath. For most of our beds. We do have a few older models that is a little bit more challenging, but once you see the beds, if there's anything we can do to help support raising that bed, we can connect with some folks in our facilities team. Next up is Bowman. In Bowman, is the shower curtain provided? Yes, there is a shower curtain provided. It is a pretty basic, just kind of like plastic liner. So nothing super jazzy. So if you're really looking for something a little more decorative, that would be something you would need to bring yourself, but the shower curtain is provided. If a student is enrolled in a pre-program, when will they receive information about their move-in days or times? Most of those students should have at least, oh, great, somebody actually answered this for me. Check your little email. You should, for anybody who was assigned early, there are 1 or 2 groups who have not gotten this email, but most groups at this point have gotten their pre-assigned early arrival time with information about check-in late last week. I do know, I will say, I believe it's honors has not gotten that one quite yet. We were working with honors on some specifics about time frame. And students, dining halls will be open on the 29th and all weekends. Student ID will be how they get their meals, and it will be active. Yes, so meal plans actually become active earlier that week. Again, knowing we do have some early arrivals. So I believe last I understood from dining services, they will be active the 26th. Are microwaves located in the Bowman outside of individual rooms, maybe in the lobby? We do have some community kitchens in most of our buildings, and so those spaces do have at least 1 microwave. And then at least in Bowman and Butler and Hammerman, there are some microwaves in some of our community lounges on some of the different floors. So if students wanted to utilize those, they're more than welcome to. Is there an elevator in Butler? Yes, there is. For Butler, what is the best size riser to put some storage under the bed without making the bed very, very high? So again, a lot of students actually don't necessarily use risers. A lot of them just utilize raising the bed to the highest height so that they can store things under there. But if you are looking for some maybe additional space, I would say just the standards, bed riser size that you would see at like Target and Walmart and stuff like that this time of year would probably be the best bet. On Facebook, people are still saying they're waiting to be admitted to this meeting. As of right now, everyone who's tried to get in, I have admitted. So sorry if it took me a little bit of time to get some folks in. Are there RAs in Campion, even though it is apartment style? Yes, there are RAs across all of our buildings. And so regardless of whether they're first-year students or some of our returning students, there are RAs in every community. Will this recording be available where? I had trouble signing in. Oh, got in through the bridge. Oh, okay. So I will make sure that the link on the bridge was created by my colleagues over in the Office of Student Engagement. So I'll make sure that they have access to this. They tend to be the folks who are posting all of these webinars to both sometimes the parent portal and oftentimes the bridge. Are the beds adjustable in Campion, or should we purchase risers? My understanding is most of the beds are adjustable. And I would say, should we purchase risers? I would say I have seen just less and less risers over the years. I've been in Res Life for quite some time at a couple of different institutions, and I do tend to see less of them. And then especially most of our rooms do have some of the like closets or cubbies for some of that storage. Is there a way to see what a room will look like when we get there? Like without any of the things, I want to know what to bring for the bathroom. So there are a couple of different ways to get a sense of this. So one of them being some of the, on the website, there are residence hall pages for each individual hall that do at least have a digital rendering that won't be maybe exactly what your student is seeing, knowing that we do have a little bit of variation between rooms, but will give us a pretty good idea. But then also your student did get a link to a 3D like digital floor plan of their room through a service called Roomy. And so that was sent in their assignment email. So they should be able to look there to get a little bit more detailed information about what the room's going to look like. Does Hopkins have laundry and or a kitchen on every floor? If not, which floor? The kitchen is on the second floor, I believe. Yes, it's on the second floor, and then the laundry is on the first floor in Hopkins. Each building, regardless of which area, does have a laundry room, and most any of the buildings that don't already have built-in kitchens, they do have community kitchens available as well. So they will be be able to navigate those spaces as they live in there. I would say for the most part, laundry rooms tend to be on the first floor or the ground level. What if my child's roommate moves in a few days before she does? Can she drop off some community items to the dorm before she moves in. We wouldn't be able to provide the student a key or anything like that, but if the student is essentially there as a guest, that technically of the roommate, then yes, technically they would be able to do that. We just would not be able to like officially check them in prior to their check-in date. There's also an elevator in Bowman. And then is there, yeah, so there, I believe every single residence hall that students will be moving into does have an elevator. So Hopkins also has an elevator as you kind of navigate there. How do you get into the parent portal? I actually don't run that service, so I'm not 100% sure about that. But that is run by the Office of Student Engagement, so I would check their website. What do the kids are free to do? So any of the folks who are in a pre-fall, in terms of meals, some of the dining halls are open. They're just on a smaller schedule at that time, but their programs should be coordinating some of the meal gaps that might occur if they're here early. What are the measurements of the closets in Campion? I don't have those specifics off the top of my head, but again, I would check there is a set of like residence hall furniture measurements that may have the closets as well. It looks like they don't have doors and you would like to put a curtain up. That is absolutely totally fine. I have actually lived many moons ago, lived in a building that had that. And so I did one of the like just tension rods to do that, which was very helpful. But that should be something that is listed in the residence hall measurements. The pictures do not show the size of the showers in Bowman. How would we figure out what this truly looks like? I would say my next suggestion would be, I don't have the measurements of every single like piece in every single room. So I would encourage your student to log into that link that has their 3D floor plan to see if that might give them a better sense of that. Does roommates tell you who your roommate is? Yes, it should. Your housing assignment and roommate information is on there, but I also did send emails out with their assignments to anybody who had completed their application. I will name we did have some folks who were admitted on a rolling basis and did deposits on a rolling basis. So there are a handful of students who, first year students who are still being placed. I am looking to get those done as quickly as possible, knowing I know lots of folks have questions about what to do. Can a student bring their own desk if there's enough room? That I don't believe we would have enough space for, so that's not something I would recommend. And thank you for someone who said the specific closet measurements are available online. Thank you. What are the most popular convenient food delivery service for campus? I would say most students use Uber Eats or Grubhub, some of those kinds of things. All of those are pretty convenient, and I definitely see, particularly on the weekends, lots of cars stopping off to drop things off. And had lots of different options from the area from what I have seen myself. Is the 3D floor plan in the email their specific room or just an example? That should be a pretty close rendering of the specific room. Again, the company we used actually did take photos in all of the rooms across campus. So that should be, while maybe not perfect, it should be the closest match to see the real thing. I think I got to the bottom of all of the questions in the chat, but feel free to keep putting stuff in there. Or if anyone is brave enough to unmute themselves, also feel free to do that. Are beds assigned in each of the rooms? Technically, yes, but it's more so important to make sure students are in the correct bedroom. So particularly for our folks who were placed in Campion, it is important that we know who is living in each bedroom. So there is an A and a B bedroom, and if you're in a 3-bedroom apartment, a C bedroom. So making sure that those your student is moving into the correct bedroom when they enter, and those should be labeled when they're moving in. Sort of the like left and right bed does not matter as much. Any other questions I can help answer? When do students get their ID? Yes, students will get their key and ID at the same time at check-in. We'll have a nice little packet for them ready to go. A water fountain in Bowman. I'm trying to rack my brain if I can think of that. I'm not 100% sure. So I will look into, I know that was a question for one of the other buildings as well. So I will look into seeing if I can hunt that answer down and make sure that that gets added to the posting about with this video. If you're in Campion, do all the appliances work? Yes, they should be working. If your student finds that something is not working well, then they will be able to put in a work order and someone from our facilities team will come check that out. Had a couple of questions about where this was going to be posted since folks missed some stuff. This will be posted with our Office of Student Engagement. I believe it will be both on the parent portal and potentially also in the bridge. Is there a dining hall near the west side of the dorms? Yes. It's not it's a little bit different than sort of if you saw Boulder, which is kind of the main dining hall. It looks a little bit different than that space, but there is a dining location in Newman Towers on the ground floor. So that's another spot that folks can go. I will say it's one of my favorite spots to go and grab lunch on campus. But there are a few other dining locations outside of just Boulder, and we call it Iggy's is the one in Newman. And so there are a few other locations that students can utilize throughout their time. Is the Wi-Fi strong across the entire campus or just in buildings, library, etc.? That is a really excellent question. I've never had issues. I've been on campus. I actually started here about 6 months ago. So I haven't had too many issues logging on. So both when I've been visiting and working out of some of the residence halls, as well as on main campus, I have found that the connectivity has been pretty good. Is there cable in Bowman? We actually don't offer a cable across any of the halls. And so, however, students do, by virtue of being a Loyola student, they do get access to Xfinity Live, so they can do some live streaming through Xfinity, through a partnership that we have with them. Okay. Okay, so this question was about some measurements in the open closets with cubbies and wider dressers. I can see if I can make sure maybe we can add some of those in there in the next week or so. Can both roommates bring fridges? There's nothing that explicitly says that they can't. However, I would note that that would take up quite a lot of room. So just depending on size that folks are thinking about bringing, I would just be considerate about how much floor space that might be taking up. And then also, if folks are interested in this, we have a partnership with a micro fridge rental company. Most of all of our returning students. So after this year, everybody will be living in apartment style housing. And so some students find it a little bit more convenient to just rent for that first year, and they will drop off at your room and pick it up at your room at the end of the year. Are there any computer specifications, and is there a student discount or access to Microsoft Office? I don't know the answer to that question. I would look on the like technology services website. They might have some better information about what students might be able to use. Do the dimensions of the fridge really matter? Yes, actually, we do have some guidelines about how large the refrigerators can be, and that is in or on the what to bring section of the website. I believe it's 5 cubic feet, but just in terms of size, especially like in terms of space, but also how much energy they're using. There are multiple print centers across campus. There was a question about where do students print documents. So there are multiple printing stations. Some of them are also located in the residence halls. We do often have some printers that students can utilize. They are able to put money, or they get a certain allotment on their ID card, and then they're able to reload that if needed. That they will be able to use as like a little tap system that then will release their print job. Ordering books, can we wait till campus or do you need to do it in advance? I think either way, you can do both. I know I typically was the person who always went to the bookstore to pick up my books. But if folks did want to look at ordering some of those ahead of time, I know sometimes I would look for prices on, renting books or something like that. So depending on how your student is hoping to utilize their books, would be a couple different ways to kind of navigate that. But you definitely could do that during weeks, the welcome weekend. There should be some time to head over there, or even potentially move-in day. I was gonna say, Eli, I also believe students do have free access to Microsoft 365. But I would make sure to double check some of the IT pieces for that. How do students pay for laundry? Great question. Actually, laundry is free. So laundry we consider included in your tuition. And so there have been some programs where it is like limited to a certain amount of loads per week. But as of right now, last I heard from our vendor, right now laundry is free. Which, as someone who recently was using a laundromat, I can very much attest to. We love the free laundry. Where do they look to see which books are needed? So I'm trying to like double check my thoughts here. They should be able to navigate a lot of that through the bookstore. So usually, from my understanding, what they will do is that based on their course number and section number, they will have a list of books that they need. Also, if any of their professors send out syllabus, like their syllabi before the students arrive, sometimes they will do that maybe the week before classes are starting. That would also typically have the list of books that they needed. When will they get their mail address? They actually should have access to that already through RoomRes. That should list their mailing address in addition to some other information about their housing assignment. When will they have their mail stop number? I am not 100% sure about that. That would be something that is assigned by mail services. And so I would get in contact with their team if the student is not seeing that number currently. Are they allowed to bring or have an area rug? Yes, they are able to do that. Are we allowed to bring more people to move-in day, or is it only limited to 2 people for pre-fall programs? The reason we suggest the 2 people is just for traffic, and then also just space in the room, particularly if your student is moving in around the same time or unpacking around the same time as their roommate. That can just be really challenging in terms of number of people in the room. So we would say when you're able to really try and limit it to that 2 people. And that would even go for those pre-fall programs. I would say if your student knows that their roommate isn't coming and you wanted to bring another person, we're not necessarily going to turn folks away. We're just more so trying to like make sure we're being considerate to folks who might be navigating moving in around the same time. Oh, and that's very helpful to Gail. The post office told me today that mail stop info will be available in 2 weeks, and that will be available in room res. Thank you, Gail. I haven't been in contact with mail stop in a little while, so. Can you tell me quickly how it works for the assigned time during moving day? Yeah, so the time that you sign up for is when you should be arriving at the FAC. Once you are there, we will kind of help guide you through the process where you student will check in, get their keys, their ID, and then there may be some waiting period where we are waiting to make sure there's space for you to unload at the student's assigned community. And there will be lots of maps also available to guide you from the FAC to the residence halls. Yeah, so for the check-in time, you sign up for that on room res. Students got an email late last week about how to navigate signing up for that in room res. And as I did mention this earlier, but the amount of people who can come in per 30 minutes, that's kind of the way that we set them up is by 30-minute intervals. That will it is limited to a certain number of students per time block to again help with that traffic flow. So there may be some slots when you look that may not be available at this time. So after drop off the dorm, are we able to go back and help our students organize things? Yes, absolutely. So you would be parking your car in one of our satellite lots, and then there are shuttles to head back and forth as you kind of navigate that. So yes, you are more than welcome to head back over to help organize. When do upperclassmen arrive? Yeah, that's a great question. So I will name there will be a lot of students on campus by the time the first year students arrive. So a lot of our student leaders will be here. Some of those folks are moving in early. And then the upper class student move-in is over the weekend. So it's Saturday and Sunday of that week. So I think it's the 31st of August and the 1st of September. When do they meet their Messina advisor? My understanding is they should have been they potentially were already in contact with their Messina advisor after orientation. But then they will also be meeting with their Messina course within their first week of classes. And so if their advisor is their professor for that semester, that's when they would meet them. And typically their advisor is one of the 2 semesters, I think often in the fall. So they would be meeting with their entire Messina leadership team, which is a student leader, a faculty member, and also a mentor, which I am one of them. So those 3 folks will plan the enrichment hour that students go to each week in addition to their course. Someone asked if I had any idea when work study jobs will be listed. I actually don't know. I'm sorry. I know I'm laughing that you wrote, sorry, I know it's not housing. I'm not 100% sure about that. But I would definitely suggest students keep their eye on the website for a variety of different offices and look at some of those student employment tabs or even just, I love the little search function sometimes of the Loyola website. I've been able to find some good stuff hidden in places I didn't think to look. All right, any last minute questions? Do you know if Campion has open closets? On the website, I see a wardrobe. Um, hmm. Trying to think back to the last time I've been in Campion. It's been a minute. I'm not 100% sure about that. It may vary room to room. Um, that building, I will say, does the apartment layouts are just a little bit different depending on the space. So I would suggest the student look at that 3D rendering to see if that is helpful. That might be the best way to look. Because yeah, I don't know that there is, I'm not sure it's 100% consistent throughout the units in that building. Well, I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you so much for spending some of this time with me. Um, And so, as I've talked to, there have been a few questions about the link being a challenge. So I will make sure to work with my colleagues in student engagement to make sure that this is posted, hopefully to the parent portal as well as anywhere else that might be accessible to parents. So that folks can review anything. If you end up having any other additional questions, you're more than welcome to call our office or email our office. Our email address is residencelife@loyola.edu. And we will do our best to get back to you in a timely manner. I will name our office. Our email is pretty busy right now, so it may take us a few days to get back to you. So we appreciate your patience as we kind of navigate the many, many emails that we are getting right now. It's that time of year as folks are getting prepared to head in. But we're really excited to be welcoming you, your student, and you all to campus this fall. And if there's anything that you need in terms of support, feel free to let us know. And then we will continue to be in communication about some of those move-in details and logistics directly to your student's Loyola email as we approach move-in. So again, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate you spending some time with me. And if you need anything else, we are here to help. Have a good night.
Hi, I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just curious about like the roommate situation. I
Yeah,
went to room res, but I couldn't find it.
okay. It should be under your, if you're looking on your homepage, it should be
Mm-hmm.
in the top right corner that says like my assignment. It
Uh-huh.
should be there.
Okay.
Did you get an email with your roommate information?
Yeah, I think so, but
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
so
I think I
for the
did.
most part, roommate information hasn't changed, so that
Mm-hmm.
email would be the best place to start. Um, but you should be able to also access that in the my assignment portion. So I think if I'm, it's been trying to like visualize, it should be a button on the right side of the page. It's like green with white writing. There are a couple of different links that will take you to. And so that should be where the my assignment information is. That should have your room assignment and your roommate information.
Okay. Oh, I have my housing assignment, but
Uh-huh.
the roommate assignment, like it doesn't have anything in it.
Okay, that could mean that right now you don't have a roommate.
Mm-hmm.
We have been navigating some just like some changes and some other pieces there, as well as we have some folks who are depositing on a rolling basis. And so anybody
Mm-hmm.
who currently does not have a roommate, I am looking to make sure that they have a roommate before move-in. If
Okay.
there's any updates to like adding a someone to your room, I will try and email you as quickly as I can after I make that assignment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.